Well, hello, I'm Ted Gardner, and I'm an interviewer for the Library of Congress Oral History Project. And we're here at the Public Library of Cincinnati in Hamilton County, which provides this wonderful program for veterans. And we're talking to Jack Geiger from Katy, Kentucky.
No, I'm sorry.
You're not from Katy.
No, I'm from here.
You're from here? Oh, good. All right. From Cincinnati. And it's an honor to be here with you, Jack. Dennis Daly of our wonderful history department here in the Public Library
Yes.
is running the camera. And you're going to be on DVD, and everybody's going to be able to see and hear about you. And where were you born, Jack?
Right here on Mulberry Street, Cincinnati.
Oh my gosh, over the Rhine.
Yeah,
Yes, sir, right up the hill there.
yeah.
Well, isn't that something? Where'd you go to elementary school, Jack?
Vine Street.
Vine Street School. Now, what year were you born?
26, I'm sorry.
1926. Okay, well, gosh, you and I have both lived through the 20s and 30s and all those times. And we remember the Great Depression and all that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Now, so you went through Vine Street School and then to high school?
Rothenburg Junior High.
Oh, Rothenburg Junior High.
And then from Rothenburg, I went to Woodward High School.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now, that was the old Woodward High, wasn't it?
Yeah, I graduated from there in 44.
Well, I'll be darned. Boy, you've got some history. Tell me about your family. Did you have brothers and sisters, or?
I had one brother that was in the service. He was a doctor, and he was over in the Pacific also, on Titian and some of those islands.
Okay. Did you have any particular hobbies or interests as a boy growing up?
Just sports. That was most of it, besides different kinds of work.
Sure. We all had jobs, didn't we?
Boy.
Were you a paper boy?
No, but I delivered shopping news
Oh,
for
yeah.
a while.
Sure.
And worked in a drugstore after high school when I got out. When the day was over, then I'd go to a drugstore to work for a couple hours.
I'll be darned. Yeah, well, those were great learning times, you know, and everybody pitched in. Everybody had to do something to keep things going. Well, what about high school? You went through, graduated from Woodward
Yes,
in '44, you say?
yes.
44. Okay. Well, now 44, the war was on. Where were you on? Remember where you were on Pearl Harbor Day, December the 7th, 1941?
I was at home on Mulberry Street.
You heard about it on the radio?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really an experience. I think almost everybody who was aware and alive at that time will never forget where he or she was on the Pearl Harbor Day. As you progressed on through school, you had your eye on the military, did you?
No, I wanted to go to college, so they had a situation in high school. If you had good enough grades, I guess.
Sorry. So you anticipated going to college, and what transpired when you got your sheepskin from Woodward?
Well, I had by then gone to college for a year and got my sheepskin after I had a year of college. And it was kind of funny because I had to take American history at UC to get my credits for graduation from high school.
Right.
So I went there and got a jump on getting into college. And then graduated in '46 the time everybody else graduated from high school.
Right,
That I was
right.
with. So
What did you take, what were you planning on?
I was planning on, I was in pre-med,
Uh-huh.
and when I was taking some of the laboratory classes, I kind of wondered if that's what I really
Lost
wanted.
interest, yes.
So I was halfway looking forward to going into service and get out of going to the pre-med preparation.
Right.
So I went into service then and got drafted and started out from that.
Where did they send you the first off?
In Ohio, what was the name of that place? But from there we went to Camp Roberts, California.
Oh, boy. A
So
long train ride, huh?
oh boy, that was, more food spilled on you and stuff. People going by.
Right.
The rumors were flying. They're going to ship us directly over, and that was true. When we went to California. So
Uh-huh.
I didn't understand how we could get shipped out. We didn't have any training. But
Right.
there were a lot of strange things going on.
Oh, of course.
But
Well, that first experience at Camp Roberts, that must have been an eye-opener for you.
oh yeah. It's a.
People that you met and the rules and restrictions and everything that you had to go through.
Right.
So you were going to be an infantryman or what?
Yes. So got through that, and then from there I was shipped to the Philippines,
Oh, wow.
and
What kind of a ship did you go over on, you remember?
it was a troop ship,
Uh-huh, big ship?
and we all slept downstairs on those cots. There were about 8 inches apart. I
Right.
think.
Stacks of them.
Yeah, right. So we'd get our blanket and go up on the deck and sleep on the deck at night. They made you wait till after dark because of bombings and stuff.
Right.
And
All lights out, of course.
oh yeah.
Dark ship.
So then we landed in the Philippines and went to Manila.
Now, that must have been something to see that devastated city, huh?
Yeah, and
Gosh.
so we got off to get processed. And as I was going through the line, the lieutenant that was in charge on the Philippines saw that I was from the University UC in Cincinnati, and he had graduated.
Oh,
So he asked me, he said, would you work with me on processing here? And of course, sure. So he saw that I had some typing, and that's always been one of the things that's opened the doors over there.
Yes.
There weren't many guys coming through with typing. And so we were processing, and at that time, they passed the law that 18-year-olds had to have more training before they went into combat because there were so many getting killed.
right.
So he asked me where I'd like to go, and I said, well, what's open? And he said, well, we got a vacancy in the Ranger Battalion.
Wow.
So I said, well, that sounds good. I should get some good training there. So then we I was shipped to the Ranger Battalion in Pampanga Province, which was north of Manila. And
Now, there were still a lot of Japanese around, weren't there?
yeah. And they were coming out, and, it was a cleanup kind of process.
Right.
And then I stayed there, and we were in the 6th Ranger Battalion. We were in training, but there again, it just was a coincidence that the company commander needed a clerk, so I was getting my stuff downstairs to be with all the guys, and which was interesting to get some talk from them. Most of them were in some kind of combat.
Uh-huh.
And that battalion is the one that freed the American soldiers that were being held in the camp. What's the name of that? But anyway.
Oh, you mean that prisoner camp?
Yeah.
Cabanatuan?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they were there, and so then the recruits that came in for replacement were getting training, and I got there, and this sergeant called out my name, and I thought, oh my gosh, what happened now? So he said, the company commander wants to see you. So I went up to talk to the company commander, and he said, Geiger, you can type, huh? I said, yes, sir. He said, well, sit down here. So then I had a type for him, and he looked at it. He said, well, I'm losing my company clerk. He said, I'd like to have you come up and be my company clerk. So I got to sleep in the office behind the area where I was working. And that's where we were waiting then for the war to end.
Uh-huh.
And, there was a lot of discussion about Truman. Truman was threatening to drop the bomb on them. And people complain about the atomic bomb over there, but there would have been a lot of Americans killed had we had to invade Japan.
That's right. I agree with you.
So we were assigned then to go to, let's see, get ready to go to a place around North Japan.
Uh-huh. Hokkaido?
No, I can't think of it now.
So you were being prepped to go ashore, right?
Yeah.
Land on the
And
Japanese island.
occupy Japan.
You're right. Right.
So I said to the guy that was with me on the landing barge, that man, oh man, you could look up and see the emplacements up on the hill.
Right.
And we had a hard time getting in there. And so we landed. And
Now this was the sixth? What was the number of your outfit?
6th Ranger Battalion.
6th Ranger Battalion.
So
That was a famous one.
So we landed and then went to Kyoto. So as we went to Kyoto, we went to a place where the Japanese had trained, and it had a big parade ground there, and the Japanese person in charge, commander, turned his sword over to our commander and had an official ceremony there.
You saw all that, huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then thought, oh, finally we get to live in a barracks. And, well, we had our stuff out on the in tents, and they said, well, you're going to have to stay here a while because it's full of ice and you can't go in there. So they had to fumigate all that. So we finally did get into the barracks, and we stayed there and for occupation. And
How long were you there? Do you remember? Several months or?
Yeah.
Well, that's okay, go.
It was June of '45 when we landed on Luzon,
Oh, yeah.
and Manila, and went to the 6th Ranger Battalion. And then to when we landed in Japan, it was around the Kyoto area. We were shipped went to the Kyoto area on to take over the barracks that I just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And then stayed there, and we worked out of there. The regular people took a lot of night kind of training and stuff,
Right.
and stayed there until they decided to drop the bomb and then to surrender.
Uh-huh. Now, were you working with the Japanese people there, civilians as well as military, or what?
No, there weren't too many Japanese around where we were.
I see.
But when we went north for training, there were some coming out of the hills that they didn't know what the story was in surrender, and just wandering around, and so then picked them up and shipped them to an area for holding.
I'll say. Well, now, when those bombs were dropped on those two Japanese cities, how did you learn about it? Were you told right away by the Army that?
Yeah, we had we had radios that we could
radio
listen
contact, radio communication.
Yeah.
Okay.
In our,
Boy, that was great news for us.
yeah, you're not kidding.
Because we knew what it meant. didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you've pointed out a very important fact that a lot of people today don't really understand, and that is that, just as you said, once that happened, we knew that we were going to save a lot of American lives, and Japanese lives as well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, now, so there you were, the bombs had dropped, and what was your prospect from there on?
Well, there were rumors that when we were taking training, and they knew, the headquarters knew, where we were going to land in Japan if we invaded. So it turned out that that's the same place we landed.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So we got there, and it was a tough job getting into the place where we were landing because of sand shores and stuff, and the landing board, the vehicle that we were in couldn't get in, so we finally had to get out and wade through the water. We had our full pack and
Right.
rifle and everything,
Wow.
wading up to the beach, and if they'd have been in place up there firing down, it would have been like shooting ducks in the.
Yeah, you were really exposed there. So you eventually got ashore and set up a base right away.
We were shipped to Kyoto, where we took over the barracks that the Japanese had been
Oh,
in.
yeah. Now, Kyoto, that was the
Cultural city.
yeah, the cultural and
So there was no bombing there.
right. We'd avoided that, hadn't we?
Yeah. So it was a drastic comparison when I went to my next assignment at Kobe,
Uh-huh.
because Kobe was 80% bombed out.
Yeah, and that was a real big city too, wasn't it?
Yeah, because
Kobe.
it was on the coast, and
Right.
there was a lot of shipping coming in there.
Well, now, do you remember what kind of a landing craft you went ashore on? Was it an LCI or just a little boat? Huh?
Although no, it was a landing boat. You know where the front went down?
Oh, yeah, yeah. LST maybe, huh?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
And the fumes were coming out, and everybody was getting sick, and we couldn't land, and so they said, well, we're going to hit and then get out. So that's what we did.
How deep was the water when you went into it? Up to your chest?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
you were carrying what, about 90 pounds a pack? Yeah.
So it wouldn't have been a good experience if we had to do that when they were shooting.
Under fire, terrible.
So then when I got to Kyoto and we took over what they call their area, but there were houses, Philippine houses that were taken for our command, and that's where we got set up. And took more training there, and listened to Truman and the atomic bomb. And
right. Now the training you referred to, that was to, what was that for? What were you being trained for?
Well, night tactics and that kind of stuff that we didn't get in.
Yeah. Of course, the Rangers, that was a highly trained, very dangerous mission.
And so,
tell me about some of the people you met. Do you remember any of the fellas that you were close to and so forth?
Yeah, there were some real nice guys and some jackasses, you know, that thought they had to kill the Japanese that invaded us, you know. So we'd go out to some of the nightclubs. Well, there was one nightclub there near Kyoto, and so we'd go out to that, and then there was a river that ran in front, a little small river stream, ran in front of that nightclub, and some of the guys would grab Japanese and throw them in there and that kind of stuff, you know, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
I found them most cooperative, and but they were aware of what had gone on, because my ranger pats, when I'd walk down through Kyoto streets here, and they'd come out there, oh yeah, you know, indicate that I was a ranger, so they knew what was going on.
And they respected you for that too.
Yeah. And that's what Cabanatuan is where they freed soldiers in captivity.
Right. Yeah, going back to that, Jack, your experience there at Cabanatuan was dealing with the enemy soldiers, right?
Yeah, that's what it was. I wasn't there. Our outfit was there. They were the ones that freed them. But that was before I was assigned to.
I see. Okay, so there you were near the old cultural center of Japan. That must have been quite an experience for a young fellow from the States.
Yeah, the shrines.
To see all those things.
It was.
The way of life.
And so, yeah, there was a lot of nice things that you could visit in Kyoto, you know.
You talk about the bars or the nightclubs. Did they have what we would be accustomed to here in the way of
mostly sake.
Sake,
but they did have their own whiskey, which was not too tasteful.
Right.
But had an interesting experience when we went to Kyoto the first time, and I had a friend, sergeant. He could do so many things, you know. And we were walking around Kyoto, and this guy from another unit was drinking beer. And I said to him, how'd you get beer? He said, well, you have to have a note from your officer that you need beer to take back to the company. So I said, what can we get? And he said, well, you can get a case or something. So he wrote a note, and we took it, and we got a case of beer. And we got friendly with the guy there, and we were going to have a party back at our area. So we took a 6-by truck and went in there and told them we were going to have a party and we needed beer, and we got a bunch of cases of beer for the party. And they had the dancers in there, you know, the gals that you buy tickets and then pay for it. So you had some change that way. But, not too much other stuff.
Well, it was a little bit of joy there.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were going to get into.
Right.
Leaving there, going to Japan.
Right.
So.
How long were you around there? Were you moved to another location in Japan after Kyoto?
Yeah. That's when we went to, when the unit was deactivated.
Oh, while you were there.
Yeah.
I'll be darned.
So then we went to Kobe.
That's when you went to Kobe. Oh, now seeing a big city like that.
Oh boy, that was something.
Just terribly devastating.
Yeah. There wasn't anything at Parley.
Yeah, yeah.
A couple of buildings where they had Eskimo headquarters, ASCO headquarters, and so that was the only place you could go to for recreation. We used to go over there and play volleyball on the roof, and then they had a little the place set up where you could get drinks and stuff.
Right.
So, there wasn't any shortage of beer around.
No, it's true. And I was I was in the Pacific a lot too on different ships, but if we ever got ashore, we always managed to have some American beer.
Right. But you know, the Japanese beer wasn't too bad.
Yeah, some of that
rice.
Some of that, what we call green beer from the States, was pretty bad.
Yeah. But I used to always look for when the company clerk, and they'd send the supplies over. I always look for a beer from Cincinnati.
Right.
Because we got a case every so often.
How about that? Yeah, in your position as company clerk, you had access to a lot of things that the other fellows didn't
right,
you?
Yeah.
Right.
I had to pass a lot of stuff out.
Right, right. And you had to keep records and
yeah,
incoming and outgoing and all that sort of thing, huh?
Yeah, I kept all the records for payroll and that stuff.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, boy. Very important.
So that was about it on around the.
Well, now with your training, did you have a sidearm, or did you have a rifle with you, or were you not armed?
I wasn't armed when I was in the office there. On the Philippines.
Right.
Or we had a rifle in the Philippines, and you know.
Right.
I had access to, but in Japan, I didn't have anything.
I see. Well, that's interesting, because I know a lot of people think, well, the Japanese were heavily armed and you know, they were ready to repel invaders and everything, but once the surrender had been signed, that was really the end of it for them.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of men around.
No.
You know, when you go down the streets, you'd see more women than anything.
Right. Well, of course, and as you know, Kobe was one of the big targets for our bombers
Oh, yeah.
because it was an industrial city
Yeah.
where they were manufacturing war material. Well, so after Kobe, what happened?
And that's where I was sent back to the United States from there.
Oh, you came back to the States from Kobe. Okay. Came back on a big transport again?
No. Came back on a merchant marine ship.
Oh, you did?
And those suckers sold all the salt when they got over there that they had. So I was on a no salt diet, I think, all the way
For
over.
heaven's sake. That's kind of hard to take.
Yeah, I thought, man. Because I was,
Well, they had army cooks aboard, did they, and mess people?
yeah,
But the food was pretty bad, huh?
yeah, it wasn't. Made me think I'd like to take a cruise someday when I got home. You know?
Right. Now, what about your, you had to build up a certain number of points before you got separated from the service. How long did it take you to build up your points?
Well, I was released in October 1946.
46, so you an extra year after the war.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Now, was that some time spent in the States, on the mainland?
No,
No.
went to Fort Sheridan and got my release and then came back to Cincinnati.
Now, Fort Sheridan, that wasn't too bad, near Chicago.
No.
That's good duty.
So we weren't there very long.
No. Any funny experiences? Do you remember any humorous things that stand out in your memory, makes you laugh? Being on furlough, or as we call it in the Navy, we called it liberty.
Yeah.
Yeah, free time.
Well, we traveled a little bit, and when we were in Kobe, we got a troop carrier kind of ship. Vehicle was a little better than a truck.
Uh-huh.
And we got that from the motor pool to go boar hunting. So we were going boar hunting, and it started raining, and we slid off of the road and turned over,
Oh my gosh.
and the gas was dripping down our backs. They crawled out of the thing.
Wow.
And we got back to the base in Kobe there, and the commander asked us where we got permission to do that. We said, well, we got the vehicle, so we didn't think we needed any special training, any special permission. So we were restricted to the barracks for a while. So,
Well, you're lucky you weren't injured in that vehicle.
Yeah.
Good golly.
But, and when I was in Kobe, in the personnel office, I heard this voice out in the other room, and he sounded like a guy I was in training with.
Uh-huh.
And here it was, his name was Duarte, and he wasn't too fast because he was always stepping on somebody's heels when we were taking, the training.
Uh-huh.
turned out that he was the chef up at the hotel where the officers were staying
Oh, yes.
in Kobe.
Uh-huh.
So he invited me up to have meals up there on special occasions.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, that was good
Yeah.
eating, and very nice.
Yeah, I should say.
So good break from the regular.
Did you meet any other people from Cincinnati when you were?
Yeah, there was some that were from Cincinnati, which were in training with us,
Right.
and then went overseas. But it was interesting that we were together because when I was in training at Camp Roberts, my brother died.
Oh,
So I got emergency leave home.
my gosh, how old was he?
He was only 5 years older than I, 23.
Oh, my goodness.
He had heart problems all the time.
Uh-huh.
But he died, so I got emergency leave to come back home. And I went to the USO, and a lady said, well, I'll see if I can get you on a military plane. So she made arrangements, and it was real nice. I had top priority.
Wow.
Some of the officers couldn't get on these trips, and I flew military planes back to Cincinnati,
Wow.
and then got back here. And then after that, I had to report back to Camp Roberts. So I thought, well, I'll go to Dayton and try and hook up with another plane back. And I wasn't successful there. And I was getting close to the point of being AWOL.
AWOL, yeah.
So I called my mother and asked her if she could send me money to get on a regular plane. So I did. She did. And then I flew out to California that way.
Camp Roberts. Now, where was Camp Roberts located in California?
Between Frisco and LA.
Okay, all right, yeah. Near the coast?
Yeah.
Right, right. That was a big emplacement, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah.
In Camp.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you, you know, I'm not originally from Cincinnati, but I've lived here a long time, and I've found over the years the importance of having a Cincinnati connection.
Right.
I don't care where you are, there's going to be somebody, and they'll always say, oh, you're from Cincinnati? And I'm sure you had that over and over again, didn't you?
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it's a wonderful relationship. Well, so back at Camp Roberts, so you came home for your brother's burial, huh?
Yeah, then that time, I went back. I had to go into another unit, and that's when we got separated
I see.
from the guys I was training with.
Sure.
So I went back to the unit and then picked up the assignments and the kinds of training I had to get. In the meantime, they went home and then they went to Europe. And by the time they got to Europe, the war was ending. So they had to come right back on ship through the canal and everything.
How about that?
So when I went from California to get on a ship to go to the Philippines, they were there. They had come all the way around. I finished my training after my leave, and some of us, we got back together again.
Sure.
So.
Well, I think it's interesting, Jack, about you're telling us about the fact that you had typing and you'd had that education, and that stood you in good stead wherever you went, didn't it?
It was a lucky thing.
It opened doors for you.
It just so happened that
Sure.
somebody needed somebody because there weren't too many guys that knew how to type and knew a little bit about business, I guess.
Yeah. Well, that's the important thing. And then, did you take advantage of the GI Bill?
Yes.
Now, that was one of the greatest things that
Oh, yeah.
ever
Yeah.
happened.
So I went back after the war on the GI Bill and took some more pre-med training, which I didn't like, and then eventually switched over to teaching.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, education.
So
So you got a degree in education
Oh, yeah.
from UC?
yeah. So I started teaching in Cincinnati, and then I was an assistant principal at one of the elementary schools.
Oh, really? What school was that?
Shield up
Oh, yeah.
on Vine Street.
Sure.
And then I was principal of Lasanaville out
Oh.
in,
Did you like teaching?
yeah, it was interesting. We had mostly, I taught downtown, the kids from the Bottoms area, and then I got transferred. I went to North Avondale, and that was more upper class
Uh-huh.
and people from the area around there. And so I was at North Avondale when I got promoted to, no, I'm sorry, when I was principal. Yeah, I was North Avondale. Then when I went to Lasanaville as principal.
Well, you mentioned the bottoms, and that's a term that you don't hear very much anymore because they don't exist anymore.
Yeah, right.
That was all wiped out.
Yeah, right.
Down there next to the river, and now the redevelopment of the city and so forth changed all that.
Yeah.
So you had experience with different levels of children and so forth.
Yes. And it reminded me, we had a lice problem when I was down at Guilford.
Lice. Oh my gosh.
That's when I started down there.
Wow.
And we'd have to inspect every morning. And,
Head lice and so forth.
but you'd get it cured, and they'd have to go back to those homes.
Yeah.
You could still see where the 37 flood was in the houses.
Really?
Yeah, they were bad shape those kids lived in,
Yeah. Well, you remember the 37 flood,
Oh,
don't you, as
yeah.
a boy?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Sure. You were only 11 years old.
I hauled water from different places, and
My golly.
And
Did where you lived, was that house you lived in, was that affected by the flood?
no.
You were above
Yeah,
that.
right. But most of the kids that were in school down at Guilford were in homes.
Guilford School right down here on 4th
Yeah.
Street. How about that?
So,
Boy, you've had you're a pioneer. Now, so how long was your career in teaching? When did you finally retire from teaching?
I retired in, what was that?
In the 60s, 70s?
Yeah, it was in the 60s.
Uh-huh.
So then I would, from that, I thought I wouldn't have too much for my retirement, wasn't needed to supplement it to do
Of course.
anything.
Yep.
So I ended up being a salesman for home improvement.
Okay.
One of my wife's relatives had a business, Jackson Home Improvement, and he said, well, come on and work with me. Well, I had to learn about home improvement, siding and replacement windows and that type of thing, so I went to work for him and worked in that, and then retired again from that job to just do work at the church and different things.
Oh, sure. But your experience, of course, and your education, there again, that stood you in good stead wherever you were.
Yeah,
People
right.
recognize your your background and so forth. Did you like sales?
Yeah, it was,
Yeah, it's a good life.
yeah.
Yeah.
Meet a lot of nice people.
Oh, yeah.
Some jerks, like, all around. Do a lot of driving.
Yeah, well, that was one thing about sales. You had to get out and hustle.
Yeah.
And you got to see different places and meet a lot of nice people. And as you say, some jerks too, of course. But so there, now, tell us about you getting married. Who did you marry?
Well, I married Janet Esslinger, who was in we both were in their class to do what? Confirmation.
Confirmation class.
Down there at Philippus on McMicken.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that old evangelical church there.
Yeah, right.
Sure.
So her family moved up to Fairview, and I stayed on Mulberry Street. Then eventually her family moved to Cheviot, to the house that we still live in.
How about that?
And so we got married right, let's see, well, it'll be 60 years that we're married.
Remarkable, remarkable.
And
Well, that's interesting because, you know, there's a revitalization going on over the Rhine, and Philippus Church is still operating.
We're hoping to improve,
Yeah,
membership.
right.
It's down quite a bit now. So.
Yeah. Yeah, there have been so many changes over there, of course.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I do some volunteer work with the Cincinnati Preservation Association,
Oh, yeah.
and we're involved in trying to help with that area. Well, goodness sakes, you've had a tremendous experience in life,
Yeah.
and the community here.
Yeah.
Now, your name Geiger is a German name, isn't
Right.
it?
Right.
So were you descendants of early
Yeah.
immigrants from Germany?
Yeah.
How about that? This city is just full of that sort of tradition.
Yeah, I imagine.
Oh, yes. Well, now that you've been retired for several years, what do you think about the way things are going on in the country?
Well, we need improvements, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, we can always use that, but we're facing a big situation, aren't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. And looking back on World War II and your experience as a young man, the experience or the philosophy of the times in World War II, so different from what it is today. Can you address that? The spirit, the patriotism.
Yeah. Well, like when I graduated from high school, and I had to anticipate going into service, but everybody wanted to get
Right.
into service, and in fact, I used to put hot compresses on my knees because they were bothering me before I went to get in, so I wouldn't be,
So you would be
not accepted.
sure. You didn't want to be rejected.
Yeah,
You wanted
right.
to get in.
But I had trouble in Camp Roberts with them, and so while I was in that training, it was interesting. We were on bivouac and up in the mountains, and this guy came up and called Geiger, and I said, yes. And he said, they want to see you down in the office at headquarters. And I thought, oh my God, now what happened?
Trouble.
This was after my brother had died and all that stuff,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I got down there, and he said, I was taking not chemotherapy, the heat therapy when I was at Camp Roberts. went to the hospital almost every day and got that. And so they wanted me to see this doctor. So I went in to see him, and I was having trouble with my knees, and we talked, and of course I had been going in for that treatment and stuff. And he said, well, what do you think? And I said, well, it's not too comfortable, but I don't want to get out, and like to get training and go overseas and
Right.
see what we can do. So when I stopped at the desk outside with the sergeant, I said, who was that? He said, well, that's the doctor that decides if you stay in service or you get out, you know, from medical discharge.
Right.
So got through that.
Yeah. Well, you had the right attitude, and we all thank you and congratulate you for what you did. You talk about your interest in athletics in school, and then I remember you said something about you played volleyball on a rooftop in Kobe.
Kobe.
Yeah.
And then when we were in Kyoto there, in those old barracks, we had each company had a baseball team.
Oh yeah, baseball. Great.
Softball, and we
Sure.
had a contest. Whoever came in first got a Japanese pistol because they had all these supplies in there. And we just missed it the last game.
Oh.
So that was heartbreaking.
Yeah.
So we got sabers that they had used in training. And
Right. Well, you did get some souvenirs.
yeah, right. Yeah, I sent some rifles home and
Uh-huh.
sabers.
Did you ever get a Japanese flag or anything?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He had one of them. I don't know who got that, but
Well, over the years, things like that have a habit of getting picked up or slipping away from us. I know I lost some good things too. Well, you know, your attitude and your devotion, and with your physical problems, and you're not wanting to get rejected and not getting discharged for medical reasons. This was so typical of the times, and so many people felt that way, and you certainly are to be thanked for that, and your devotion to duty and everything. You know, that was part of the training too, wasn't it?
yes, yes. Yeah, everybody was devoted to that, you know.
Yeah, right. And to get the war over, and then when it was over, everybody, you know, you wanted to forget about it, get it behind you, and get on with your life.
Right. And I had been writing to Janet quite frequently, so by the time I got home, it was a good relationship.
Sure. She was a school sweetheart, was she, before you went overseas?
Church.
Church, through the church.
Yeah.
Wonderful. That's
She went to Western Hills, and I went to Woodward, so there was a little difference there.
right. Well, it's just wonderful talking to you, and if you can think of any other stories, because you're telling this for your family, and you realize you're going to get a DVD of this interview, and a copy will go to the archives in Washington, D.C., and a copy will be here in the Public Library of Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So people can tune in and see this life story of Jack Geiger.
Yeah.
So tell us anything more that comes to mind.
Well, after we got married. We had children, 2 boys and 2 girls.
Oh, that's nice.
So they all went to college.
Are they all here in Cincinnati or
No,
Kentucky?
Jay's and Katie's, and I have a daughter in Connecticut
Oh,
and a daughter here in she lives in Hidden Valley. She teaches at Lawrenceburg.
oh yeah, over in Indiana. Okay.
And she had taught in Cincinnati, but after they got married, they moved to Lawrenceburg. So
I see.
Well, down at what's the name of it?
Do you want this? Or do you want to talk about?
Oh.
You want to talk about Jerry? What are you doing?
Okay. Well, my one brother we talked about was a doctor and was over in Tinian and that area and so forth, and he got home before
Right.
I did.
Right.
Then he set up practice here.
Now, is he still with you?
No, he died.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, he was 15 years older than I.
Oh, I see. Right, right. But you got your 2 sons here, right here in the interview room.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
nice.
They helped me down.
That's great.
I look like I belong to the Disabled American Veterans. So,
Well, I think you're just doing very well, Jack, and again, we congratulate you for your accomplishment. And I think it's so important for people to understand, what you did in your civilian life as well as what you did in the military, because you made tremendous contribution in the field of education. You look back on some of the children that you taught, and
oh yeah.
any of them still in contact with you?
Not regularly.
Not
But
regularly.
I run into them over the airport or something.
Right. How about military friends? Do you have any reunions? Did the 6th Rangers?
I never got involved with that when I got home.
I see.
They had a unit, organization of 6 Rangers, but
Right.
most of them were from Europe.
Oh, yeah, from the European theater.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Right. Well, it's just, it's been a great experience talking to you. And again, we want to thank you for your great, great contribution to our nation. And God bless America. God bless you and your family. And we hope that you continue on for many more years. And again, we want to thank you very much.
Thank you.
And it's been a pleasure and an honor for me to get to know you, and I hope our paths cross again.
Yes.